We started thinking about ways through which we can contribute to the situation. Apart from material contributions, we realized that we can do our part as researchers by starting a discourse of discussions about ecological and climatic changes and their implications for human lives. We know such calamities are taking place in other parts of the country too. To mark the undying spirit of people of Wayanad who still brave the aftermath of the disaster, we decided to call the series as Wayanad Resilience Series, addressing the challenges of climate change in India. This is an initiative from student body of the center, and our institute kindly agreed to support and facilitate our initiative. The students collectively decided to use some of the collected funds meant for cultural activities towards conducting these sessions. I invite our director, Professor Veeramani, to share a few of his thoughts.
Thank you and good evening. Welcome to this event. So the highlight of this event is that the students of CDS they have taken this entire initiative and they have made some sacrifice also for this. So that clearly shows how they feel about this entire incident. So the issue is very important and we need a lot of discussion because there is not enough understanding of what is going on. There is a lot of people talk about different reasons why such disasters occur in Kerala frequently, but many people do not know exactly. There is a Gadgil committee report. There are people who doubt about it. There are people who support it. So there is need for understanding of what is really going on. And we think that in CDS that we need a discussion and more broader objective type of discussion rather than based on an ideological position on either side. So we need to know from both sides. And we think that a kind of interdisciplinary type of a perspective is the right perspective to understand because there is science involved, there is economics involved, there is politics involved, there is also behavioral aspect of the people that is involved. So many things are involved. So we cannot see this issue only from a one particular perspective. We need to look at from multiple perspectives. So this is an area where there is a lot of so that application of that interdisciplinary approach is very relevant and it is a policy related, directly affecting the lives of the people and policies of the government. So it is in that perspective that this issue we thought of discussing and students have taken the initiative to do that. So with this, I welcome all the resource persons who have agreed to come to share their views. And I understand that they have planned to continue this series of this type of discussion. And we are hoping that we will get better ideas about what is going on. Welcome all the resource persons, welcome all the participants. And I thank students in particular for taking this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So today we wish to discuss the ecological changes that have happened in the region. What have been their implications? What are the socio-economic vulnerabilities present in the region? And we also wish to ponder on the way forward. We are grateful to the three distinguished speakers who agreed to come to the center for the panel discussion. Firstly, we have Professor K. Shoman, who retired as scientist from National Center for Earth Science Studies and has been consultant scientist for several environmental impact assessment projects. Dr. Shoman has held positions at several departments and published important books like Geology of Kerala. He has also been part of several committees studying landslides and other climate-related issues. Our second speaker is Professor Srikumar Chattopadhyay. He also served as scientist from the National Center for Earth Science Studies and was a senior consultant at KDISC. Professor Srikumar has also been part of committees set up to understand landslides, rainfall, and floods. We are looking forward to learn from his experience and time spent in Wayanad. We also have Mr. Sridhar Radhakrishnan, who is an engineer and an environmentalist. He has closely been observing policies and developments around agriculture, climate, and land use. has been writing regularly at various online platforms and media. He has been part of research projects at CDS2, and he's also leading a voluntary organization called Tunnel. We extend our welcome to all the three panelists. The discussion today will be moderated by Professor Suraj Jacob from CDS. We are pleased to inform the gathering that he has recently joined the center. His research interest lies in political economy of development and social relations. Before joining CDS, he was with Azim Premji University and has experience as a development practitioner too. He has co-authored a book titled Governing Locally Institutions, Policies and Implementation in Indian Cities. Two of our PhD students, Aina and Vishnu, will be the repetitors for today's discussion. I invite Professor Suraj to take over the proceedings. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. As Professor Veeramani said, this is a student initiative. This is the second of a series that the student body is planning, and I'm privileged to be able to moderate this discussion. We have a lot that the panelists want to share with us. Many of us will also have a chance to really discuss these issues. So let's get straight to it. Thanks, Shraddha, for introducing the panelists. May I just remind us that this panel, which is called Development at the Crossroads, is we are here at an academic institution called Center for Development Studies, and this is a day and age in which the idea of development needs to be rethought. And so I think what happened about 2 weeks, just a little over 2 weeks back, gives us at CDS a chance to ask deep questions about what is the nature of development and where, for example, does ecology figure in our imagination of development. The other part of today's panel title is Pasts and Futures. And our panelists will be taking us in a journey into the past, the immediate recent past, which led to these events, but the deeper past. And all three of them have had, I think, intimate contact with this part of the world, with this part of Kerala. So they have worked on these issues over the last many decades. So I hope we can talk about the history which has led us to this point. And the other part of the title is And Futures. So in the second part of today's panel, we will get the panelists to reflect on what does this mean for thinking about the future. So really, we are trying to encompass a lot here, kind of reimagining what is development if all of this is coming to pass, understanding history with a view to looking at the future. The format for today, we'll have one round where each of the presenters, and we'll start with Dr. Soman and then Dr. Srikumar and Sir Sridhar, will take about 10-15 minutes, and some of them have PowerPoints to take us through really some of the geological and geographical and other features of what happened. And then after about 45 minutes, after that first round is done, we'll take questions from the audience. And then we'll have 2 or 3 further shorter rounds where they can kind of respond to some of the questions. So, but we'll start with each of them giving a kind of prepared kind of presentations regarding what's happened. So we'll start with Dr. Soman.
There's a huge tragedy. Kerala, after the 18 floods, so it is all climate related. Now we say, but when we say climate related, it's only a small set of a subset of the major set of disasters induced by the global change. There is a different term that maybe during the question time we can elaborate on that. So climate is so important. Suppose we understand Vasco da Gama reached Calicut in the month of May 1598. But the Englisher, William Hawkins, reached Surat in the month of August because there was the direction change of the wind. Because the trade winds, because the monsoon winds approach the Kerala coast, then slightly shifts and passes on to the north and spreads over the whole thing. So climate is something, even with what you call the occupation of India by Britishers who reached their landing sites and everything. So in this huge disaster also, the rainfall, that became a trigger, only. That also played havoc with us. So I will deal generally with the geological aspects. I got a few more slides, which maybe I'll confine to 10, 15 minutes. The later ones, if there are questions or answer session, that time I will do. So I will not cut into the timing. So the context of global change climate, this is the context. 2000, 2020, 2 decades, 7,340 recorded disasters were recorded, and people's lives lost were 1.23 million, and economic loss has been computed as $2.97 trillion. That is as per the UNDRR, the United Nations Disaster Risk Reduction report. Flood and storms were the prominent ones, but geophysical events, that is earthquakes, tsunamis, landslides, etc., killed more people than all other put together. Kerala experience also substantially this is a context why we want to look into the whole issue, because Kerala is suffering from 17 onwards consecutive disasters. So now let us look at this is what we call the geographical divisions, as well as this a digital elevation model. You see the red points over there. That constitutes the highest peaks of the Western Ghats, the red points going. Western Ghats, from the southern part onwards, it is going, reaching the Palghat Gap. There is a lower elevation. Then reaching the Wayanad district, the mountains are on the western side of the Wayanad district. So Western Ghats passes through the western part of Wayanad. Wayanad is a detached district in Kerala, more closely linked to the Mysore Plateau. So Wayanad is that's its own geographical business, and that is not only the geographical business, and then it has got a fertile landscape, fertile land, and it was a source of spices. That is one of the reasons the Europeans started looking at the Calicut Zamorin and getting the products over there from. And when if you look at the history of Wayanad, because I'm not a historian, but a few things about the people who are interested, they can look into it. Compared to the other districts in Kerala, it has got a checkered history spanning over larger period, invasion from the mainland, from Vijayanagara, then Mysore, then the Britishers, and the Parsi Raja finally coming, and finally occupied by the Britishers, who ravaged this landscape. They altered the landscape for cultivation, timber, that is the estates, all at high altitudes, and mineral mining. A company called Smith Mining, it was incorporated in London, started gold exploration, gold mining, then mica exploration, this one, and the first railway line, that is from Nilambur. That time it was part of the eastern part of Wayanad, not the geographical boundary of today. That was laid for transporting the timber. So the British say, it is a ravage, outright exploitation, because this timber, that is a rosewood and teak, that was a main building block for the ships and things like that. So that is what similarly, it has got a very protracted geological history. You are seeing the 8 colors over there, that is the indices being shown. There are 4 or 5 units also, which are not within this small region. So it is 13, 14 colors are available, means so many rock types are exposed in the area. And the oldest rocks found in Kerala, it is in the, that is in the, that light blue color. That is what we call the Sargus and Tharwas. They are only found in this part and with some continuation to the eastern part of Kannur and Kasargod. The oldest rocks we get there and the youngest rocks we get there. And also in between this, Tharwar and Sargur rocks are schistose rocks. They are not very hard as the granite and other charnakite, the hard rocks we find here. When they are weathered, they give rise to very soft, very fertile soils. And if there are some layers of that is, say, as intercalations between the hard rocks, that gives a good plane for slipping. It's all, that is, these are some of the things that is on the geological distinction of this district from the rest of Kerala. And then you know that this is one district as a whole, if you take, it receives the maximum rainfall recorded over this. Then this was also experienced spells of drought, floods, and everything. And the plantation sector got affected in all respects. Then this is also one of the districts where you have got the maximum wildlife sanctuaries in the state. And we have got the first incidence of, say, for example, wildlife-man conflict. This is in district, followed by Idiki. Then the reasons are same. The same way Idiki was another district ravaged by the Britishers with the railway line in Munnar and everything for, naturally, that the floods of 1924 removed it. That is a different thing. So Wayanad's other distinction is that it's a plateau region. After crossing the Western Ghats from Calicut, then it's a more or less plateau at an elevation of 700 to 950 elevation. How does an elevation and okay. So on the this color distinction, you can see the green part is the plateau. When you look at 700 to 950 elevation, 950 is in this side, that is the southern side, that is close to that pink color. And the lower side is going to the northeast. There are hummocks, small hillocks you are seeing. They are small, round-shaped hills within the plateau region. That is what we call the erosion outlayers. If you combine all the surface of these outlayers, this is a plateau that is intervened by valleys. In the case of Wayanad, these valleys are steep valleys. Steep valleys means they are fractured and also regenerated. That means it is under another spell of erosion. Through multi-layer spells of erosion only, this plateau region evolved. What is the symptoms we get on the ground of this one is that if you are putting foundation boreholes, etc., you get a sequence of soil followed by some sort of small rubbles, etc. It's again repeats because various spells of erosion, transportation, then it will uplift, and finally you have gotten a surface like that. And Idiki has got a, not this way, smaller, a similarity. So these two districts are very vulnerable in many respects. Okay, that means this process of erosion, transportation, and the materials going to the ocean side, this is a continuous process going on here, and it is adjacent to that. And then we have got the, I'll just want it. This is the part of Pellerimala, etc., where this one is originated, this part, close to 2000. My body is shown there. It is the plateau region. This, our drainage, I'm sure the drainage map also, it has got a drainage to the east. That is one of the rivers in Kerala that is going to the Kaveri. It is from this one, Kaveri. And the rest of this one, because it's a huge, very, very high range of mountains, from the drainage from this side, they take this Nelambur Valley portion and come and then go as carrier over here. This is the sort of things happening. So this is a physical set of the district. And a plateau, something look like that. You see, this is one. There are little elevated. This one, average, you take it, it comes to from 950 to 700. It's a plateau region with its, say, tilt towards the northeast, that is towards the Mysore Plateau side. And this is a drainage. You are seeing that it's important. This is the Lensana range. That means that is a water divide between Calicut and Wayanad. This is the one. You see the drainage and the patterns you see. They are not dendritic. They are something like a trellis pattern, mostly controlled by fracture zones. That means lineaments, fracture zones. That means tectonic. That means weak zones in the geological parlance. This is a landscape imagery of both parts. The southern part is the lower part is the Calicut part, and the other part is Wayanad. You are seeing how dissected this place is. These are major fracture zones. These are how small and big. There are two sets that end is called Tirunelli in the Wayanad district. But in Tirunelli to Sultan Batteri to Nanmeni to Chura, etc., where this tremors recent took place, that happens on the same line. So these the river courses are all on the fracture line, and the tremors when you have got a friction of rock somewhere, tremors are generated. The tremors send the shock waves. If they are close to surface and of small magnitude, their manifestation is like a roaring sound. That's a roaring sound. Because it is not recorded, you cannot say it is not a tremor or earthquake. Because just like I have got a heart attack, but it was not recorded, so I don't have a heart attack. The argument will go like that. So it's not the case. Okay, now we come close to our type. This is a topo sheet of the year 67, 68. All the physical features, drainage, and also the delvings, you see. This is Mundakai region, you can read. All the dots are the houses spotted and mapped on those days. And go up, you will get the Chure Mala, right? But settlements were on one side, on the right side of the stream. On the other side, it was not there. The exact Chure Mala is the other part of it is in the northern side of it. And then, like slightly nearby is a Putumala, where you had a sufficiently huge landslide in the year 1998. 8th August 2019. That is over there. Okay, now this is the crown source area of the present landslide, and the other one, that was the crown source, the source area of the sliding material. And Putumala is somewhere where you have got the green one, it is somewhere over there. Okay, these are what you call the spatial distribution of these things. And this you must have seen already. The crown you are seeing. This is a river, where it called, and this area from where you have the material, and Pellerimala goes like that. And on the other side, the stream is there, it is going down. You are seeing a sort of circular failure, And when you say now a lot of conceptual discussions take place on the causes, etc. This is a spatial distribution of the areas, one thing. Pellerimala, where it started, then Churalmala, then Atamala, there was another source, and Putumala is somewhere here. And this is a place where, there's a switch, and then it comes and goes into the Sujipara and down to the Chalipura, which joins the Chaliyar. Mundakai, now look at the Mundakai, Ponjarimatam, and the river course and the terrain you are seeing. Because these are some of the features, it is for your information, and also maybe somebody on a what you call a mega scale or a large scale or a synoptically, if you wanted to have a look at what we will do and do forward. Okay, this is also from the illustrative. The Sujipara, we read every day that this is something like 86-meter fall, a cascade, a number of falls. And if a body falls, it will be powdered. You will get parts only. Body cannot be retained as such. It's a cascade of 86-meter altitudinal difference. And this is for me that this is what I was talking about. This was the river terms. The river on this side is curving. When the river curves, when the material comes, the velocity goes down and sediment starts settling. And sediment starts settling, and after some time, what will happen? When water flow is less, water flow becomes less. Okay, it will on the side of it, it will go. But it all happens. The terrace takes on the interior side of this sort of concave business, or two streams join. Also, that happens on the interior side of this zone, and that is a bridge that has been broken. I mean, carried away. And finally, this is the one we have got now. Churalmala. Same thing. And you see the sort of rocks here is only a small part of it. And sort of huge rocks. This is one thing we have to account for mechanism, this on how it happened. And you see the size of the rocks, and also the shape of the rocks. They are not rounded. They are just like broken pieces. But at the same time, some geometry you can find out, because in a fractured zone, a geometry comes like a diamond shape. When two sets of that's a mechanical. And this is a crown again. Crown of this one. This sir. It's over time, no? Okay, why can't I use that? I can. Because then I can, that is, I don't want to cut into the time. And this here I was saying how the rocks are fractured, and this is a river, and then you see what is that? The rocks, it's a fracture. That is what we are trying to say, that simply because some soil is there, that soil cannot remove the rock masses. It is fractured, a technically prepared area where you have got a tectonically worked up place. Then you have got a soil, the water goes in, and keeps on. Then when the hydrostatic pressures overwhelms the binding power of these blocks, it bursts out in one bout or two bout or three bouts. So without understanding that, you cannot say and explain the sort of, say, for example, I see, this is Pettimudi. You see the blocks, they are just cut, like saw cut shapes. In Putumala, same thing. Putumala, but the major blocks are on the side, it is not there. And Kamalapara, detached. So without looking into the tectonics working on this one, you cannot explain. The other thing is, okay, you have got a soil cover, you have got a what is slope, these are all there. But there are a number of parameters without which you cannot make a susceptibility map and then try to say that this can be done, this cannot be done. I'll just see, this is the last one I'll put, Say, for landslide causes and triggers, geological, morphological, physical, and human factors. Triggers, in every case, trigger can be maximum one or two, or a combination of one or thing. Triggers can be intense rainfall, snow belt, flooding or water level fluctuation, rapid stream erosion, slope failure due to physical, chemical, earthquake, tremors, volcanic eruptions, storm waves in the end of where it is close to the seas, etc. Then man-made one, undercutting, of these things. Then if you really want to do something, you have to do landslide susceptibility mapping. Then only you can come to a parametric way, say that this area is dangerous. But for the whole region, you cannot do it. What you can do is that identify the larger segments of population, settlements, then, because they have to be safeguarded, study the surroundings and say, this sort of dangers, this sort of danger zone is there, please. This is the only thing we can do. Now, we cannot say that in a country already populated, overpopulated, everybody is occupying. You cannot remove every one of them. So these are parameters going into 10, 15 parameters. Without these things, if you are simplifying and saying that, okay, this is a slope, you should not know. If the slope is very steady, nothing will happen. But why the trigger is water should percolate, water should go, store there in huge quantity. There should be what you call the theater for that. So this is one thing and also I wanted to maybe on the discussion stage, I can say two things. I have two slides. Part of it shows that there is in the Churalmala region is a classical tectonic land. On a tectonic landform, that means tectonic means uplift in basement. Okay, you can, it's like a sleeping elephant. You start putting a hut. When the elephant rises, the hut will go and he will pay. So that you should know. Second thing, what is the biggest danger is that this atom lab, there is a slide that is cutting at that mountain, and it is on its way, what is called the headward erosion. It is on this one. It is going to capture the river from the other side. It's again tectonic stuff. It's going to capture. Pardon? So what is this one is that maybe, oh no, so what I could discern from these things is that the source of the crown of the landslide I have shown, it is just like a big circular fair or cavity, and river originates there. And the other side, there are streams going to the opposite side. And this sort of erosion, headward erosion is taking place with the help of tectonics, is that this river with a lower, what you call the catchment, lower level catchment, it will capture the other river. There is a process called river capturing. So it is all related to the tectonics, and it will ultimately alter the total topography. And Wayanad is undergoing probably that spell of geological activation, which the results, final results of which we may not be able to see in our lifetimes. But the generations will suffer due to calamities. So now you can decide, you have got a tectonic landform and the 900 plus this Churalmala, etc. is close to 959 meter above MSL. And a tectonic landform you have got, if you want to leave, leave. And it's a river taking place, and river capturing and everything, this will be activation going on. And there are incidents of, and there is a one slide, you can see below the present sludge, there are symptoms of landslide brought in angular rocks. That means there are symptoms. If you dig deeper, you can find out even how many episodes of landslide might have happened over there. Without looking at all these things, if you are saying it is very comfortable and go and stay, well, salute to them. Okay, then my part is over.
Just up and down.
Yeah, just up and down.
Yeah, correct. Thank you very much. I cut down the preliminaries because CDS is almost my second home. So I'm in CES and very frequently coming past 40 years in CDS. Anyway, I think what Dr. Showman told, presented, I'll be just following a little bit on that. Maybe they were a little bit sort of overlapping, but it's actually sequel on that. Now, first thing, when you talk about the Ghat, what does it mean, Ghat? Means it goes step by step. So the Western Ghat has not in one, the jerk gone up. It has gone in different era and different steps. And laterite forms at the sea level. And that laterite now you see at 900 meters. That means just think of it, that soil, what is the age of the soil, how friable it is, how delicate it is, how fragile it is. So this actually to make this presentation that how really up to 100 meter we have a gentle, and from 100 meter it almost jumps. So that part is really very, very vulnerable. That is the point number one. If you look into the Wayanad, as Dr. Showman has already shown, there is a part of the Malabar, and that is the part, in fact, it actually has a tilting towards northeast. And this part, where our landslide took place, that is along this border, shall be coming to next one, is a very, very, what is called the geologically unstable. 84 landslide, 19 landslide. This landslide is always taking place and along the weaker zones. Now, this is the crown, which you have already seen. I'm not going into that, but what I'm going to see is the last landslide was here. If you look into the right-hand corner, here, there's the old landslide. So this landslide has really gone a little bit wider. 84. Yeah, inside is 84. Now this year it has gone a little bit wider. So it is captured a little bit more area. That's the sort of a thing. Same thing, I'm not going in these details. Here also the same thing. Now, this is the thing which actually talks about that the junction which we have it here. The highest point is Vellari Mala. This side is Malappuram. This side is Kozhikode. This is, so this block. And if you could see here, the rivers are actually coming from here. It's like almost standing up and rivers are radiating from the sides. Dr. Shoman already discussed about the geology, how fragile it is. Now going there, see 1984 landslide, in fact, I walked myself and my wife. That time I was working in Wayanad. There was a paper, there's a work from CWRDM. I was surprised why that paper has not really, CWRDM has not put it, but somebody put in Indian Express, partial. There is an antecedent rainfall. See, we are all talking about in a day 300, 400, but 300 and 400 one day is not sufficient to make a slide. Before that, 3-4 days, that rainfall comes, the soil gets wet, and that's coming. So that time, the idea was one, the reasons was told, one is the doctoring of the slope. The slope was doctored. Blockade of the natural drainage. The natural drainage which takes the water out, that is blockade. Like someone has forgotten, but he made this statement earlier, that when you get what is called that saddle, that from both sides materials get deposited in an area, but the soil is not anchored in that, it is not an inside to soil. So there is a soil, and by gravity, this soil comes. Over the years, we feel it is very firm. We make a house there. And then when this sort of a catastrophic rainfall takes place, it actually takes the whole thing out. Then what we've seen actually, that is the time on the plantation site, it started. Landslides started the plantation site. The slope inclination was 25% to 50%. Topographic ruggedness was 0.2 to 1. And there was a, what is called that soil saturated up to 80%. That was the report came in during that time. Now, what I'm showing is here, say the rainfall which was recorded, 29th, 8:30 is this one, which is hardly about 100 something. At 3 p.m., this one, it crosses 200. At 1 a.m., it crossed 300, and the slide took place. And by 8:30 a.m. on 30th, it actually crosses 400. This is the huge rainfall, what has really taken place. Now, which Dr. Shoman told, I just add one from that when you try to do the landslide zonation, there's a term called Atterberg limit. Atterberg limit tells you that when a semi-consolidated material, it will start being the plastic. And from the plastic, when it will start being the liquid. So a group of scientists, I think with Lalita, our KMNAR was also there in that study. They made in Iduki that this limit from 24 to 43% for the plastic limit and liquid limit 40 to 56%. Now it is possible to work out with giving the soil and the water that at what point of time it will be the liquid or the plastic. That's a very important indicator which can be really put along with this one. The right-hand side which I am showing is that a soil profile. Now, if this entire soil is actually standing over a base rock, And the laterite soil with all very clay rich, when it gets water percolates, and that makes some sort of slippery at the bottom, and the whole thing slips. That's a sort of a thing which really happens. Now, 2019, I was in Putumala, in fact, as a part of the team. I went to Putumala to see these areas. And you can see that, which again, Dr. Soman was telling, the type of rock joints. See? And from this, the entire area has been washed. Here, which you are seeing is a two-storied building. Two-storied building. That much has been covered. These are okay. This is a river. Just down this one, a little bit down below, we have a bridge through which we can cross. Yeah. We crossed and went to other side of it, and you can see that the type of gully which has formed. This entire area, to tell you very frankly, this is a place where there was a hotel for tourism. People are going there. So this is the scenery of the Putumala, which is the other side of which now took place. So Putumala and this Churalimala and this Mundakai, this is a complex which is very unstable in general. Okay. Now, Kabalapara. Why I put this photograph? Just say, see why this has not been washed out. Say, slide started from here. You can see the rock outcrop, but this has not been protected. Say, we have a very wrong notion that the hill slopes are uniform. No. Hill slope has spar and hollow or valley. The hollow gets the material, and that is the area through which the drainage takes place. But at the time of our culturing or doing the terracing, we actually break the hollows, so we don't see through which the water will go. Now, there's a spar here, because in fact, we walked. There's a spar here, and water course is like this, and water course is like this. So it is between two water course, a spar, and that person and the house has been saved. This is the lesson that nature is telling us, that take this lesson. And when you try to do something or plan the hill slope, look into this adjustment and then plan your activity. I stop here. The future part I'll be telling with some of the slides. Is there? Oh, that's very good. Okay. So this is a sort of a thing which is called the physical part of it on the case of a landslide. Now come to other side. What changes in Wayanad we see? Present forest cover is 37%. You see, in 1983-84, we first came out with a deforestation report for the entire Kerala, where you have shown that in 1905, Kerala had 44.5% forest. That time, Wayanad has almost like 80% forest. And then today, it has 37% forest, and the plantation has overtook, if you take the other things. So there's the continuous history. Expansion of the plantation with the British being a part of the Malabar. They like to put the tea, coffee. I had the date, but exactly I don't remember now. When the first coffee plantation started in Wayanad. Okay. Like all other places, food crops. I think Sridharan will tell, the Wayanad name came from the paddy field, isn't it? Yes. Yeah. It was so much, it was really famous for the paddy, and 10% of land was for that. The rest is the other things. Okay. Now, the important thing is rubber has also entered. Gone. So what are the factors? See, myself and Professor George from CDS, we did a work for the Science Academy. That was a project with land use change and population growth, taken up by Indian Science Academy, Chinese Science Academy, and US Science Academy. And Kerala is one case study, Haryana was another case study. Kerala case study was executed by myself and Professor George. That time we identified, one is the establishing the plantation. That's one. Second is grow more food campaign in 40s. That time, these forest lands and the wastelands or the wetlands were allotted initially with some tax. In it now, first 10 years, there is no tax. After 10 years, a very less tax. So there was a government intervention. Then we started with the river valley projects, infrastructure development. There's a two bouts of migration. I do not know how many have seen Michael Tarakan, his MPhil thesis on migration. And there are two periods, definite periods of migration, where you have, 30s, 40s, and again 50s, 60s, this migration went. Then, of course, tourism started expanding and the globalization, the type of things happening, which started changing the whole scenario in Wayanad. Now, if you look into the left and the right, as in today, say plantation and the forest, this covers almost like around 80%, but our more than 20-degree slope and 15 to more than 15-degree slope land is almost 80%. And over the 15-degree land, you should not do anything. It has to be done with utmost care. So there's a mismatch. The type of slope which you look into, type of land you look into it, and our practice which you look into. With the preliminary analysis which we did, that the landslide prone area is 103 square kilometers in Wayanad. There's a high, and the low is 197. Wayanad area is 2,130 square kilometers. So hardly 9 plus 4, 13, around 14% area has this problem. Can you not save it? Can you not save it? If you look into the entire Kerala, hardly 7-8% land of this situation. So that is the question which you have to really ponder over. Now, there are a couple of population density figures which have shown how the population has grown. And you'll be surprised, now the population growth rate in Wayanad is less than Kerala, less than state average. Till 2011, 2001, it was high. Initially, you can see that these are all Wayanad figure, Kerala figure, Wayanad, Kerala, Wayanad, Kerala. But this time it started, say, 2001 to 2011. Then Wayanad figure came down, the growth came down. But look into here. The built-up area, population is coming down, built-up area is increasing. We know that people have more than houses, and they are actually sort of a real estate, and then hotels and all those tourism and all those type of a thing which is really happening. So built-up area increase means there's a tremendous problem in the sort of a water sector. So that's sort of a thing which you have to really look into it. And then this we talk after. Sure? Okay, thank you.
You can take this.
Online.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. See, let me start off by actually saying that I'm the odd man out in this August speakers crowd. We have heard one geologist and one geographer speaking. I come with a different experience. I come with what I know about Wayanad. I come with what I have worked, studied a little, worked a little, traveled to some extent, and then perhaps spoke to so many people around in my last 2-3 decades of work. And you sense some understanding of what's happening there.
So let me just come to some facts that we need to see, and I'm thankful to both of them to have placed Wayanad in its understanding as far as the Earth is concerned, the geology and not just the geography part, but Dr. Srikumar also raised the initial concerns about land use itself there. The critical question is land use, one of the biggest questions there. As he said, population is probably stabilizing over time. But then there is this huge land use issue. And then when you question the land use issue, you think that people there are building big houses. Some are. But that's not the main land use concern there. In the last few years, and I do not know how many years, but let's say in the last 10 years perhaps, massively, the number of resorts, for instance, or building for homestays have perhaps exponentially gone up so much that there is no numbers with anybody. There's no numbers. So you go to Mepadi, which is the hotspot now, and ask the panchayat how many tourist destinations are registered and you have there. They'll give you a number. So some journalists went in to find out what it is, and then they found that about 100, at least there are more than 100 illegal in the sense that the panchayat doesn't have numbers. So illegal resorts and homestays. But people there who know Wayanad are saying that there must be at least 500 plus in just one panchayat, which is marked or supposed to be designated, or probably very soon in the draft notification would be marked as an ecologically sensitive area under the draft notification, which is Madhav Gadgil, Kasturi Rangan, Dr. Woman, that sequence which we heard from Dr. Sajeev the other day. We have 500 plus in that place, and it's also marked as a landslide susceptible area by the National Center for Earth Science and the earlier Center for Earth Science Studies. I think they marked it in 2009 and in 2016-17 report, and in 2023 the ISRO has also marked the same thing. So it is not. So the other day there was this whole argument that I had to have with a politician. I'll not name him, where he was arguing that we need to study what happened and why this is happening there. I said multiple institutes have marked not only this, but it's a agreed position that this is a hazard site, this is a susceptible site. All we need to do is have a statute around it, because the government has to approve it, has to take it and say that yes, this is it, and we are bringing the following guidelines. Now this brings me back to, while I'll dwell with other things very quickly, this brings me back to what Dr. Sajeev said, and I'm sure many of you were there, and I'll just add a couple of points to what he said so that this story is complete. When 2011 Madhav Gadgil report came up, and we had a good description of it. Again, the same thing was said. He talked about ecologically sensitive areas and what are the guidelines for it. And he didn't say that or the committee didn't say that go ahead and implement the guidelines in the panchayats. Panchayats were asked to look at the guidelines and see what fits in for you and do accordingly, because the overall philosophy of that was conservation. Conservation so that we will be able to sustain well. We will be able to live, less hazardously. But what did we do with the Madhav Gadgil report? He told us. It went into the Kasturi Rangan report, and then it went into the Woman v. Woman report. And finally, we have some 9,900 square kilometers to be notified, of which 9,100 square kilometers is forest, where you don't need any of these commissions and reports to tell you that you need conservation, because it's already protected. We're talking about 800 square kilometers, which is about 131 villages. This village is one of them. So, to me, and this is something that I want to state upfront, to me, the Madhav Gadgil report was not just an ecological lifeline for the state.
It was a economic lifeline. It was a social lifeline. Today, if we are seeing so many deaths, I'm not even saying that these deaths will be avoided or the landslides will not happen. But if we had started something in 2011 and we are moving forward to it, we would have had that levels of guidelines and preparedness to avoid at least the casualties. We would have moved towards that step by step. We lost about 14 years. In 2010-11, the same time, so I repeat, we lost a social lifeline, not just an ecological lifeline. But why am I saying that we lost an economic lifeline? That is because if we had a sensible government who understood governance at that time, what will a government do when such a report comes and everybody knows it's a lifeline? They'll take it, they'll establish a very high profile committee under the chief secretary or very big scientist or somebody, have interdisciplinary scientists there and implementing people there, and then ask them to come up with an implementation plan and a budget for implementing this. Obviously, there is opportunity costs which will come. There'll be people who may have to be moved out. There'll be people who may not be able to do that kind of cultivation that they did, exploitative cultivation that they did earlier. So they may have to, adjust, which all is costly. We could have put that cost in place and actually come up with a figure. Let's say, for ballpark, simply 10,000 crores, and then walked up to the government and walked up to the globe and said that, fine, this is the natural heritage. The Western Ghats is important. We want to protect it, but we need 10,000 crores. It was an economic lifeline. We threw it out. Just say, there's possibilities. We threw it out. Almost same year, we had the state, again, the same kind of team. And we were all part of it. Made the Kerala's draft land use policy. Why I'm saying the story is that while we understand the collapse of that place, we must also understand that there has been desperate efforts to try and do something sensible around it to keep Wayanad going or keep Kerala going. We drafted the Kerala state land use policy. The state did not have a land use policy. We drafted. Lots of people were involved. Scientists, civil society, stakeholders. We discussed with the plantation people. And finally, we came up with a draft. The then Minister for Revenue, to whom the draft was submitted, really got jittery around this draft. Because he thought that, oh, this is the next car deal. We will not take it. And it was shelved. It is lying somewhere in the Secretariat dead. 2010, 11, 12, same period. Then the floods happened. We all know 2017 Oki happened. We started understanding that the climate is changing. The Arabian Sea is behaving differently. When I'm using these words, please understand that I can also probably try and explain how it's behaving differently, but I won't attempt it because I do not know that science to be able to tell it in that sense. So let's talk about that to weather scientists and geologists and geographers and all that. But right now, we know that the Arabian Sea is changing. It's heating up. Its patterns are changing. We are having trouble there. The patterns of rains have completely changed. We are having huge cumulonimbus clouds come over our head, 8, 10, 12 kilometers. We never knew that will happen. And we are having massive bouts of rain in short spells, something like this, 300 mm, 400 mm per day. Sometimes in, even 100 mm plus in 1 hour. We are having that kind of, impact. So, when in 2018 the floods happened, unfortunate incident, obviously, one of the biggest floods that India has probably seen. All the UN agencies came together and, along with the government of Kerala, formulated what is called the Post-Disaster Needs Assessment Report. I don't know how many of us have actually read that report in its seriousness. To me, when I started reading the PDNA, it was obviously not a very, ecologically classical report, but from a development perspective, and me being an engineer, from a development perspective, it was a very, very sensible report. From a development perspective, because just to point out what was its yeah, what was its essence, the pillars of that, of what they were suggesting. It was talking about a climate resilient Kerala in principle. It was talking about eco-sensitive and risk-informed land and settlement approach. It was talking about community-based disaster management, and it was talking about disaster risk reduction plans and such ideas like room for the river, build back better and all that. But then when it went into the descriptions, it was still carrying those ideas and saying that this is how probably Kerala should develop. So it explicitly went and stated that if we can do something like this, plan something like this for Kerala, we will probably be the first green state in the country, even that extent. Gave us a big dream. Then what happened? By 2018 end, we got this report. 2019, the state sat on, the state, meaning the chief secretary of that point of time, and I don't want to name him because he was one person who walked us, to whom a couple of us walked in, and we were having a fight or an argument, let's say, over trees, and then he taught us something. He said, climate change is a myth, don't even worry about it. So this chief secretary and a few others joined together and created what is called the Rebuild Kerala initiative. Same government, it's the same chief minister at that time. And then following the Rebuild Kerala initiative, we had the Rebuild Kerala Development Project, RKDP. And then you should take the PDNA and the RKDP and compare it. RKDP is an operational document, what to do. By the end of 5 years of operation, let's say 2024 now, if the RKDP was in operation and it was something that was about risk reduction and preparedness and whatever that is said in PDNA, then we would have been prepared for something like this. We were not. There was zero preparedness in this issue. There were people who warned that Mundakai was going to have a huge landslide just because the soil saturation above it was massive. 2 days, nearly 600 mm of water. As you said, the day before also there was that much. Next day also there was that much. They had predicted by that, but that we would have had. Nothing was done. No emergency, no, emergency systems worked. I mean, there is something called the State Emergency Operations Center in Kerala. It did not work. Even if it worked, it wasn't effective there because people there had never gone through a drill of an evacuation plan. You go to the panchayats, I mean, Kila has trained the panchayats in how to do this. There is disaster management plans for the district, even for some of the panchayats, they have disaster management plans. In the paper, it is there. Not one drill. So the problem that we are facing, I mean, this is one part of what I'm trying to say. The second part I want to say is the kind of development that is taking a while. I'll finish with that, and we'll talk about the solution parts later. Because there is a lot of things that we have learned through what has happened now, and people like us, after talking to a number of experts, are actually drafting, potential approaches to resolve, not resolving, but handling such a situation. Tourism in Wayanad is not just a plain destructive development process. It's a predatory development process. And I'll tell you why. You take any sector, take agriculture. In a panchayat, if you have to even suggest an agriculture project and get it passed by the DPC, you have to include tourism as a component. Even if it doesn't work. Say something. Say that there will be 4 farmers who will also have homestays, and we will have one something to show. And why even the Harida Kerala mission, when they did the Neerchal development project there in one of those panchayats, the local resource person actually went in and told them, and these are supported by Kila as well. The local resource person actually, Kila, there is another project I'll tell. The local resource person actually went and said that while you're doing the Neerchal development, this is a small stream development kind of, make sure that you develop some green corners, and while you're repairing the streams, Make sure you have some green spaces there. And especially if it's in the roadsides and, paddy sides and all that, make that also so that foreigners, this is the statement, foreigners who come there will find this place and they can also come and spend some time here. And then you can also run a coffee shop or something there. Now look at the micro level at which the suggestions are happening. You're not talking about 10 destinations, 100 destinations. You're talking about tens and thousands of destinations in one small, district, the smallest district, lowest population in Kerala. There are stories and stories of how tourism is predated in that. The number of glass bridges to show that this is happening. The number of large resorts that have come. And almost all the mountains, take Banasura, whatever mountain you name it, except probably the Chembra Peak. You have tourism centers, tourism resorts built over it. Half of them technically and, geological, whatever, illegal, cannot run, but they have built it. And also mindful of us, it's a lot of people from the south and other places who are going in employment there, in the sense of, tahsildars and deputy collectors. I mean, I can give a name of deputy collectors and tahsildars who own the resorts in Wayanad on these mountains. There is an agricultural thing. See, the latest organic farming policy that came up in Kerala, the new organic farming policy, and there's a new organic farming mission. So there was this planning of the mission and people wanted to write, okay, what all should this mission have? And there's this recommendation in Wayanad that this mission should also have tourism included, farm tourism included there. Now, a little inquiry, and we found that that was included because one of the senior officers in Wayanad had a resort. So she wanted to put that also, or he wanted to put that. It is that percolative and that predatory. The point is that if something is seriously not done about regulating it, and we will talk about those part later, regulating it, we're going to have much, much more casualties in such kind of disasters than we ever thought. And Wayanad was such a beautiful place. It was such a beautiful, absolutely beautiful place. Its climates have completely changed. Its landforms have completely changed. You would want to run away from there now. There is no peace, even for the local community. Even for the local community, because every inch of it is predated. Every inch of it. Thank you.
Somebody wrote about the responsible tourism. So we are getting the rest of the tourism on US pass. Because you are responsible tourism is a development, there is a responsible tourism going on.
We have about 45 minutes. We'll take all of it, but we'll try to end at 5 as planned. Nowadays, the term expert gets a bad kind of, people question expertise, but sitting there listening to all three, I was reminded there is an old-fashioned reason why there are experts. And I think we heard from three, experts who are also passionate about it. So I think we should reclaim the old idea of expertise. I think we heard, and I don't think they are just geologists, geographers, environmentalists. Do you have any question to ask, Professor Mrudul, or anything pressing? Or okay, I think this will be recorded. So yeah. Thank you. No, I was just saying they are not just geologists and geographers. I think there's an automatic interdisciplinarity, and they are also practitioners. They care. How Mr. Sridhar ended it with the strong plea for against predation. So we'll perhaps if there are questions or comments, we'll just take all of them, and then we will continue with short rounds. So yeah, please, I think Shantakumar, yeah.
Uh, Maybe a few questions and especially to the geographer, and observations. From what I learned from Professor Suman is that it's quite possible that landslides can occur even in those places where there is no human habitations. The number one. Number two, if there is a landslide, there can be a human impact probably 3 kilometers downstream, 5 kilometers downstream, and even probably 15 kilometers downstream. And especially if the impact is notable, sizable. So in that case, probably I think this focus on landslide prone area need to change. If you're thinking about human impact, then we are talking about a larger area. For example, are some of these stream-side settlements safe? Are some of these riverside settlements safe? Given the fact that we have, for example, some riverside or stream side which have not seen any natural calamities for the last 100 years, probably some of these are also becoming unsafe over a period of time. So in that sense, I think we are talking about a lot more bigger stretch of area. The next point is that I think we can blame any government. I think I can see that any government, but and also if you understand Kerala society, the kind of change, rehabilitation or kind of change that required to address this problem is something that cannot be done by one government, one political party, or even society. We are thinking about a drastic in terms of resource requirement, behavioral change, social change, etc. Let us put something like 30% or 40% of the land where people currently live can be notified as unlivable or it is problematic. So we may have to think about certain kind of changes. So this may not, we can go on blaming government, but it may not happen. Yeah. So the final point is that what may happen, I think the only reason I can see is that there should be a drastic decline in the demand for land. And I see some possible changes happening in that direction because now already there is a drastic decline in the demand for land for cultivation, normal cultivation. But can we think about a drastic decline in the demand for land for residents, urban development, and many other cases? And how do we see a kind of development that lead to a drastic decline in the demand for land in Kerala? I'm talking about land. That doesn't necessarily mean reduction in the population size.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll take a few more, then we'll continue. Thank you.
So, my question is related to the larger issue of disaster management. So, in India, generally, when we talk about the disaster management, the focus is always about post-disaster relief and rebuilding, things which are going and all that. There is absolutely no discussion, very little focus, at least from the policy side, on how to prevent the disaster or mitigation. It is also true in the case of climate change, because for climate change, it is always at the global level, it is about mitigation. Adaptation is not getting funded or not getting enough attention. Now, these two are related, so unless the discussion it focuses more on the prevention and mitigation side, these kind of things cannot be addressed by a government at a higher level, state government or when government. This has to come at the local level. It's something like a state like Kerala, which is well known for its decentralization. It's a kind of shocking thing that this issue never becomes an important criteria or important attention for local governance, because local government has an advantage in terms of planning, monitoring, and everything related to local level issues particularly related to disaster prevention and mitigation. So unless we rethink about the way that a decentralization has to be practiced, which it has to necessarily take into account these type of issues, not just public service provision, because public service provision is important. Even if local governments are not doing really well, we have to take the decentralization model, where this has to become a much more important role that a local government has to play, particularly the prevention and adaptation. So unless that happens, I think the big government like the state government or the union government may not be in a position to handle this issue.
Others?
I didn't hear anything about this Kori activities. Kori activities. Yeah. Yeah.
We have people from outside CDS. If any of you have any comments, questions.
I just wanted to clarify one thing, because it was in the presentations, it was mentioned that this area has been it was longer itself in multiple years demarked as a landslide or whatever this area. So I understand it is what actually is the normal procedure which should go forward once that mapping has been done and some areas have been identified as high, medium, or low? Is it that there is no way forward? It's only that the mapping is done, or is it with the state government or the central government to take it forward, and that we have failed in that aspect? Would like to hear from both the experts from formally which says where we have failed in spite of the markings over the years.
As I understand from the presentation, I think not only in Wayanad, I think Kerala in many places it is landslide prone. Idiki, even the other say Vilangad also had the same, no, because since Wayanad had this much casualty, we did not talk much about Vilangad. In Calicut, the western slope is highly vulnerable. So in such a situation, but we are, and Kerala wants to develop more and more. We are highly into that. Especially, I see in the last 20-25 years of decentralization, we have done road building as one of the major development activity in every panchayat. And Kerala has the living spaces in all over. You know, whether from the coast to the high mountains we are living. And we can't change that practice now. I don't think it is possible to shift that kind of population to a safer place. We will not be ready. But then, this road building, and then in such a place, because when we see the road development in the earlier days, you know, when the British did that road, those roads are still pakka. It is not creating much problem to the landscape. But we are not able to follow any kind of scientific, no, if you say it is scientific, and looking at the landslide, this thing, even the national highway now, which is happening in Kannur, Kasargod area, the way they have cut down the hillocks and making the lives of people miserable, and they won't be able to stay there. But then no geologist is talking about it, and which is very, I feel very sad about it. I'm very unfortunate for the state because we have so much of institutions, and we are, I think, in Himalayas, if that happens or in some other state happens, because they don't do any kind of, there's not even this much cry also. They won't discuss. It is happening much beyond what Kerala faces. But we claim many things. We are model to the world. But in building resilience, I think that is the priority, should be the priority for Kerala. And in that case, I wish the geologists take a clear stance on that and then present their case at least now. So how do you do that?
Thank you. We'll have two rounds from this set of questions. I think one common set of questions was about, it's not just about landslides, as Shantakumar was saying. So this idea of eco-sensitive and susceptibility mapping, what you had said. And there was a question about what is the procedure. And Professor Veeramani asked, it's not just post-disaster. So what is the forward-looking kind of thing? 84, you said exactly 40 years back this happened. All of this came out. So why is it always kind of just reacting immediately? And what are these longer-term processes, this forward-looking kind of thing? Gadgil committee also talked about, kind of different gradations. So I think that is a common set of questions which is coming. If each of you can, in a few minutes, just respond to why is it always reacting?
Now, first I'll come to the point of the current disaster, that is a landslides. There were two questions, and related was on the quarries, and also the third was on the man-made, that is a cutting the base toe of the hillocks, and then like Shirur business that will happen, that is bound to happen in the northern districts, because I too have seen the road building going on there by the National Roadways Authority. So look, sliding of land, because you have to see the geology as a subject, as an observational subject, a natural science, and the way the earth formed. Then you have at one time the vegetation, before that you have got the marine organisms, then you had the oxygenation of the atmosphere, you have the oxygen, then you have got the ozone layer. So everything was in a gradual way. Nature created a scenario, a symptom, a house for the humans. And humans are the last to arrive on this globe. All the animals they are our predecessors, they are before us. But we have come to occupy the space on Earth as a huge destructive force, as geological force. By geological force, a geological force can create a mountain like the Himalayas. It can close an ocean. It can create new continents, and this process continuing. But that happens in millions of years or billions of years. Hardly living 70, 80-year-old humans, we cannot control any of this. But all our activities now have come to assume the strength of a geological force. This was forbanned in the beginning of last century by scientists, because we are the ones who made atom bomb and started killing. No animal species, no other species, they invent something and kill themselves. That we do. Now come to the landslide business. The evolution of the Earth's surface, it's a continuous process. So earthquakes happen, landslides happen, everything happen. When it happened in a forest, uninhabited place, what is some animals are affected. When humans started going close to that, like in Churalmala or this one, the destruction was more, we were affected. So we call it is a hazard, it is a this one, that one, and you have got all the problems. So therefore, when the human population has gone up, we have to think, or we have to have sort of a zonation where we can live, where we should live for others, where we should have our resources, something like that. We never had it. Say when the plantations were brought in, the British, because they have no stake in this country. So they took, okay, they want an altitude which will be comfortable for the flavor of the tea, and some level grounds where their workers can stay. So they made a sort of leveling, that time using the slave labor, and they did it. The modern peace plantations continue, but the lambs where there, the lower rank where it was leveled and done, they are affected. You are seeing that this one. You have seen what happened in Petumudi, what happened in Putumala, what happened here. It is all related to the sort of land use, but a process of landslide is a natural process happens. Now the other question was there are studies and what we are doing. On the studies also, you cannot say that, you say, for example, a doctor says that you get up at 6 o'clock and take this medicine, everybody doing, that is not possible. Nobody is going to do that. Now, because we have got a congested country, the entire piece of land is occupied. What we can do is that settlement-wise, look at huge settlements in vulnerable regions, in the backdrop of the Western Ghats or on the sea coast, then make a vulnerability analysis based on a couple of scientific parameters, not one or two. These are many number of things. And through discussions, debate, come to the parameters, then make the zonation, then give to the government, and the government should implement. The problem with our country is, I mean, the question is about so many reports. So when I am a scientist working, I am interested in this country to make a publication, make my name known, make 5 publications, get my promotion, then get this one. The research, teaching, everything has stooped to that level. This is what we have done over the years. Earlier, it was not like that. And now also we have got, as Madam said, we are literate. So everybody is literate. Everybody is more than literate. But we don't understand the basic literacy of the land, basic literacy of the water, but basic literacy of the air and the biosphere. These things only make our life possible. So therefore, first thing, we should have a scientifically decide how to salvage our populations in vulnerable regions. Identify the vulnerable place based on the population density or their settlements or anything, then study around. Now landslides in Petimudi 3 kilometers, here it is 6 kilometers. So you have to look into this one, all the parametric mix, plus what is the vagaries of the climate, now what is happening. These things, that's the only way. Quarrying, how do we do the quarrying? It is through blasting, okay? Blasting, it makes a vibration. A vibration, small or big, will propagate to some distance depending on the rock type. If it is a fracture weak zone, it will propagate farther. If it is a massive rock, it may not go much beyond. So, question about if quarrying is a problem, quarrying is a problem. But you require some sort of material for the construction. So then what happens? Government, in a democratic country, there are limitations for the government to put in or impose certain things. The first way is the only way, what I feel is that, again, to quote Mahatma Gandhi, your needs should be met. Your wants, you have to restrict. If you can do that, that's it. If everybody practices it, but it should all come from an emperor, from the top, because the model is the emperor, not the local one. So if this is done, that will be nice. I will add to this one more thing. Now we are confronted with we have got a problem with the landslides, calamity, sea erosion on the coastal. We never discuss those things because I don't know the reason. Maybe not this one. Then we have seen the last summer temperature going up. And if this sort of scenario happens continuously for 3 or 4 years in Kerala, Kerala's water problem will be the biggest problem because our groundwater resources are limited. We are what you call a country with steep gradient. The wells that you are having in the homesteads is only based on what you call the phreatic zone, on the upper zone. If it is not recharged annually or at least in 2 years, it will be drying up. Where will you run off? You can go only to the ocean. Tamil Nadu, you cannot go. I mean, something. So what happens? Do anybody say these things to you or to me? No. The government's intentions and this one, like not only day-to-day their business and vote bank business, they should think about, they should have institutions, they should have capacity building, they should be studied and they should be instructed. We have got departments, but what they are doing, nobody knows. Yeah.
This point about the futures, we'll come back to, please.
Yeah, I think I'll first take Shantakumar's question. Yes. From the site of the landslide, there's a runoff. Because, the building which I was showing, the 2-storied building, it is actually 5 kilometers away. And this time it has a 7-8 kilometers. So there is a rethinking going on. Those who are doing research on landslide, it is just not the sliding area. The impact zone should also has to be marked. Then need to have, when you make a risk assessment, this becomes a part of it. Very much taken care of. Yeah, we have to have a zonation. So one thing we must admit, landslide is a very natural process. If there's no landslide, we don't have the plain. It's a part of the land building. Now, so the people, we should not live there. Like I think you may remember when 20 years before I was talking about the land use change, that there's a tiger, you put your head in the mouth of tiger, and then you claim the tiger is eating me. It is on that because we are going there and that's creating the problem. So naturally, it's not. So we have to have a zonation, whatever we like or not. That's a very important thing. Yeah, the demand for land is really now changing. That's in the rural area, it's really started changing in many of the places. Tell you very frankly, 83 or 84, there was a minor earthquake in Calicut area, Kotuli. One of our scientists, he's no more. He spent there 3 days. And our director that time, First Gupta, he was NGRI director afterwards. He was also there. Then we are very specifically told by the government that don't tell this because land price will go down. People will be, the land price will go down. So don't make it, keep it as much as possible. Only we will be giving press release and all those type of thing. That's an issue. That's the issue. I think what Professor Veeramani told is very correct. In fact, we will be discussing this one in the future course. That it is always, you should not be reactive, you should be proactive. We have to talk beforehand that this can happen. And that's exactly the problem. And this problem, unfortunately, has happened in Kerala, where you have the decentralization. Disaster management in country as well as in Kerala is very much centralized. You might have seen even our Tinku Biswal had given a statement, scientists should not go. We have to intervene with CM. That what this sort of a thing is being talking about, somebody propped her, because we know this fraternity, that why scientists should not go to study. And that too, you need the permission from the State Disaster Management Authority. You cannot do that. Then CM has to clarify the whole thing. So it goes on very, very centralized. So that's is a real problem. We have to really look into it. Yeah, about follow-up action, I think, Rajan, your question was there. Yeah. Who will do? So when SES started doing this also, when 84 we did, disaster management was not in the agenda of any government or not of any institute. There was an incident. I think someone has forgotten to mention. Many of you may be remembering Amburi. Amburi was in a very massive landslide. And how many people died, totally buried. And I think you have a paper on that. Someone studied it on that again. Again, the same reason was brought out. That not just look into the land use change. That is very fashionable. Land use change has made it. But look into the geology. If it is a weaker zone, then it is susceptible. So look into that part of it also very seriously. In Amburi, it was demonstrated, means it was told, but somehow there is a disjoint. Like say we made this report on 2009, because that time Nivedita Haran was insisting that we should have a SES should make a report. It was done. The things was picked up by Madhav Gadgil report, where actually it has been identified, but it has not been implemented because that's the sort of a thing is there. Again, we go to the another policy issue that we have so many institutes, but what the institutes are doing, nobody is there to ask. Only A.D. Damodaran has passed away. He used to ask when he is EVP that, hey, what you are doing. He used to go to the institute and ask them what you have done. That sort of a accountability, I think we have not really put into it. Then I think Usha's question was correct. In Kerala, we not only like to have a house, we like to have a motorable road in front of my house, be it top of the hill or be it on the sea coast. You know what is the road density in Kerala?
You have that on that.
So this I'm going on telling so many years that extremely high road density. It needs material, it needs space. And so we do not know. And the moment you do a road and you make an impervious surface. Just 2 weeks before I was doing that Amanjam Toad. Abraham told me to make a report, had shown that Amanjam Toad, when there's a death, in that micro catchment, 80% is the unsurfaced. So you generate tremendous amount of water. And then everybody has encroached, so water cannot go. So the waste is all there and all those. It's a very... So that is a issue that how do really, people's aspiration and this sort of eventuality which comes, how do we match them? We all have to think of it.
Yeah. So anyway, most of the questions were for the science, the experts. I just have a couple of observations on what was said. I'll start with the road. See, the new national highway. I'm giving an instance. Let's take the new national highway, the National Highway 66. And even when it was being built, few of us, we had the Habitat Shankar also. Both of us were going in for inspection of this trees thing. And we stood there and we have, being engineers, we had some sense of what was happening, not like laymen looking at it. And we realized that the eastern side of the road was going to be inundated with water every year, clearly. Massive walls, very bad, service lanes. Service lanes are completely unscientifically done and badly done. Massive walls, which are the bridges and all that. And in all these regions, we are going to have two issues, and we have already started seeing it. And I think I carry that thinking from what Dr. Srikumar used to say about compaction of the ground. That whole national highway built north-south, cutting across the east-west flow of any natural environmental flow, we can call it largely, percolates, which does compaction on the ground at that level and also the surface water. We are going to have some hundreds of micro floods across the national highway. And this is something that is my hypothesis. I would love people to experience it and study it, but we have done the damage. The second point, as far as that is concerned, is I was in the forefront of fighting the K-rail railway line, if you remember, which is now not shelved, but at least there is a government has gone a big back on that. What is the only reason, the biggest reason why we opposed it? Because its design was terrible. They were doing it completely through massive embankments, cutting across north-south, cutting the east-west flow. And the report itself, the EIA itself was saying that in 174 places, we are having a hydrological concern. And hydrological concern or a hydrological problem simply means water is not going to flow out of that place. Simple. So in Kerala, the roads are perhaps going to be at a micro level and a macro level one of our biggest headaches. I'm not answering all these questions because I'm not good enough in doing that. I just want to say that, just in response to what you said, see, in the places that have been affected, you said riverbeds and riversides. I think the Pettimudi or the Puttumala happened. Similarly, there were hundreds of landslides across the state at that point of time. Even in Wayanad, we were in Tirunelli, and in the Tirunelli Panchayat I went, there were 4 landslides, small and big, and at least 2 of them had no riverbed and anything nearby. There was just not a very big mountain, a small hill. But like you cut a cake, suppose you have a cake like this and you're cutting like this and taking it off, it just cut and fell. And some 2 families went off. So it's a very strange phenomenon. I tend to agree with both of them in trying to understand this. But then what do you do about it? We'll discuss that, I think, in the next thing. Just one more clarification I just want to make regarding this post-relief and pre-relief thing. See, this is not about the future scenario, but the current scenario. Now, let me consider myself living in a precarious place like this. Okay. I am living there. I know there is a potential landslide up there or a susceptible area. I have been living there for centuries of whatever years. And every time the rains come and huge rains come, I am in fear. Now, what is the way in which I connect to a government and say, and there is a pre-operation for me or something that helps me out of it? I'll tell you, there is a Kerala State Disaster Management Agency in Kerala. There is a state emergency operations center, which is supposed to be a war room. It's a war room. And now there is a Kerala State Climate Adaptation Mission. Okay. All the 3 are manned by one scientist. The head of it is the same man in all the 3. Because it is okay. I mean, the rest of the team, the chief minister or everybody, seems to be okay working with him. But would the system work? Now, I for very sure know that all these things have percolated down to the panchayats. There has been trainings done, everything done, but then the control is on the top. Even if you have data which says 300 mm, 600 mm fell, and then the IMD comes up with an orange or a yellow or a red, thing, there must be this operational thing that should say start evacuation. And then in, let's say, 1 hour thing, something has to happen on the ground. But I'll tell you, top down, this system, even though it may be there in paper, has utterly failed in the case of the Oki. And at that time, we didn't know, okay, we are hit by a disaster. We lost some 300 people in the sea. But what about after all these slides? In 2024, what are we doing? So that is something that I think we need to discuss seriously and come up with something that is possible.
No, what, 1 minute, very briefly, yeah. You were talking about what is the mitigation business. In all the disaster management issues that stemmed from the United Nations, and we got into the business after the tsunami of 2004 and the act that came up in the parliament in 2005. It has got 3 stages. Like in Wayanad, you have got a disaster, the rescue starts with. Then the rehabilitation. When these 2 are over, you are free for some time. This is a time you have to think about preparedness for any sort of disaster. So that requires a lot of research, a lot of scientific inputs, and institutional setups and everything. Fortunately and unfortunately, this 3-tier system was never understood in Kerala. That is what he was telling. So we have got only, because you got a police force, you got these people and the army, so you have got, they can do the rescue. So we are confined only to the rescue operations and part rehabilitation. The rest is not there. And one more thing about the rain, we started blaming, because in blame game will not work in anywhere, about the rainfall data. Padinyaretara station, we were blaming the IMD. Officially, we are blaming. Yes, it was a failure. But the same lingo is available to the Disaster Management Authority.
Exactly.
When you blame somebody, you also blame yourself if you are. Sir, just to raise one point, the problems issue. See, why the hell? I'm sorry to use such words because I mean, I suppose I have the freedom to do it because I come with the banner of activists. So why the hell are we designing a tunnel right underneath the same Vellarimala, very close to the Puttumala, maybe about 6 kilometers from the current disaster, about 3 or 4 kilometers from the Puttumala, right across the same unfashionable thing. And the government has cleared it, the state environmental assessment agencies have cleared it, everybody has cleared it.
Because there is a conflict of interest, and I know something, I was a party.
So then you should be able to.
In the interest of,
I'm
we are also,
raising, I know, but
we are
I'm
losing
raising this
people's,
because
yeah, okay.
I'm just raising this because the fact is that when people die, we all have a problem. But when such a thing comes, and when we start and question that, I don't see any humanitarian, thought in this whole, in deciding even ecological concerns like this. At that time, nothing. Development has to be happening. One word, they'll put every disastrous thing into the word development and kill us.
So we'll very quickly, maybe Dr. Srikumar can start because you had some prepared slides on the future. We might run a little over, sorry about that, but request everybody to be a little brief, please.
It doesn't move. You have come, which I am not taking.
I told him to go to the
Last one.
That go up, go up, go up, go up. Correct. Text. See, in the future directions of development, let us be very clear. This issue is not alone for the physical scientists and not alone for the social scientists. Is actually come together, and which is nowadays fashionably called social ecological systems. That you have both social system at the same time you have the ecological system, and you try to put them together and juxtapose and do this one. Now, what is happening is the ecosystem-based disaster risk reduction we talk, not the disaster management, where we are talking about the technical and social engineering together with technical, you put them together, and that was the thing which Sendai framework, post 2015 development, the document Sendai framework is on that they have actually worked out on this one, where you are linking disaster management with sustainable development and all those. The Sendai talks about starting from the understanding of the disaster, you try and go on and link disaster risk reduction with sustainable development goals. And this has to be done, what is called that proactive preparedness. Means you work beforehand, not after the disaster has taken place and you try to do this one. No, it's a proactive situation. And gentlemen, you should be serious. This cold. This I faced a number of times here. No, next. Yeah, correct. So we try to put what is called that landscape-based approach. And that was the way we should move. I'm not going to the details. How we go from the assessment to the stakeholder analysis, problem solutions, from there finally adaptive management, which that's what Viramani was also telling, that adaptive management. That's the way we have to really move forward. And what to do is the community-based disaster risk reduction. Community-based disaster risk reduction that has a policy frame, that has a community level risk and vulnerability analysis, community disaster risk management, organization and financing. See, the problem is when you manage the disaster, the people, those who are doing the resorts, those who are managing the plantations, they are not accountable. It becomes a part of the government. So what you put what is called that quadruple helix. That is, you have business and industry, you have to bring them. It's a part of your job because you are creating the problem. Government, definitely. Academics, that is education and the research institutes, put them together, and community and social organization. It needs to be putting into all these things together because all are stakeholder, and that's the sort of a community-based disaster risk reduction brings us on that one. And then, there's the final one, that there is a couple of key principles and the levers on which really work, where you have policy frame, you have a finance, you have a early warning, you have also community disaster risk management organization at the panchayat levels. Not at the SDMA, Shekhar is sitting and telling it is a white or yellow. Not that. Going down. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Maybe Mrs. Sridhar can tell, but in very, very brief, just a couple of minutes. The rest of it we can have over tea. So we'll just ask them for the last remarks. He will also, but very briefly, but you'll have to be very confined.
Now, I'm not going to go into the theoretical aspect of this because I'm not equipped for that. But right now, in this current disaster scenario, we have, community per se, the people there and all of us have joined hands in asking a few things. And this is sort of the thing that we want to say. See, as far as needs the risk assessment and what Dr. Sri Kumar said, early warning systems and putting up an evacuation plan, all this comes under those philosophical things, and you need to really work on that. The problem is I don't think the system is done that at all. So that needs to be done as priority. We are excellent. We have proved ourselves beyond doubt as excellent in post-disaster management. We will rush there, we'll do things. In fact, when other states do things, we also find problems with their doing. We don't like it. We think we can do better, those kind of things. Shirur, we saw that. But the problem here is that, you see, what happens to, for instance, the people who have been affected now or who could be affected in the future? Now, scenario, somebody is living there, he or she, and mind you, in Wayanad, people who are living in such situations, still alive, no landslides, but there could be, or people living on banks, flood could happen. There are lots of people who really want to move out. I mean, how long will you live like that? They want to move out, or there could be people who want to move out. Or at the end of the day, governments should have a system whereby that option is given. Now, in such an option, what is the compensations you can pay them? What is the the resettlement and rehabilitation plan that can happen to them? We were suggesting that it should happen very similar to the LARR 2013 Act, whereby when a development project happens, people are move out and there is a compensation paid. It's called the right to fair compensation and transparency in land acquisition, resettlement, and rehabilitation. Tomorrow, the world is of climate refugees, disaster refugees, and potential people who had to move out of, let's say, an ecologically sustainable ESA or whatever, or susceptibility zones. What is it that we have to offer to them? Even as a preparedness thing, we have to have an act which is based on disasters and potential disasters like this, but which will completely compensate them. This current arbitrary thing, which is largely based on compassion, is not enough. It has to be a right-based approach where anybody who wants to move out because there is a potential disaster or post-disaster have a right to be completely, fairly, and fully compensated. So that's something that we were very strongly suggesting. And we also have to take a look at the loss and damages funds that has been discussed in the COP28 UAE, where the world has come together and at least discussed and have finalized this whole idea of loss and damages. Underdeveloped countries are going to be prioritized, but developing countries, China, India, I mean, China is also in the process of demanding it, but India like country, even while we are going to pay towards the loss and damages, we will have to access that funds. Now, suppose we have 1,500 crores loss in this. If it is a climate impact, and if this climate impact has caused loss and damages, and if we are able to properly document it in international whatever standards, and we have institutes that can do that, let's kick on those institutes to do that process so that our people are properly compensated. Just one thing, sir. Statutory declaration of these sites, ESAs, susceptibility zones, etc. It should be done immediately. I think if the pain that I'm having is in another 3 weeks, all this has gone down the drain. The state is not even going to think about it. We'll move to the next controversy if it is not another slide. So we have to talk about that. See, even in terms of Gadgil committee being discussed, I mean, let me make a small joke. See, you all, I don't know how much you know about this lore that in Kerala has. The Maveli. Every Onam we have the Maveli coming in. And this Maveli was, stamped down onto earth by Vamana, who was God. And then Maveli was this Asura king, who was supposed to be very good and nice and all that, like Gadgil. But we threw him out. We had a Vamana, pushed him on the ground. Every Onam we don't get Gadgil back, but every disaster we get Gadgil back. So Gadgil is the new Maveli nowadays. And along with Gadgil, there will be Dr. Srikumar, Dr. Shroman, Sridhar, all of us. We'll all be brought into these discussions. And then another 1 month time, finished. So that's one problem. I think Gadgil, we need to seriously start discussing Gadgil. At least take the essence of it and see what we can do in terms of the conservations. I'm winding up, sir. I'm just winding up. We are also going to ask, I'm just saying some futuristic things. We are also going to ask for a social and ecological audit. I mean, why I'm saying this is in these processes, I think students can really do a good work. And you are all researchers. We are going to ask for a social and ecological audit of the Rebuild Kerala initiative and the Rebuild Kerala development project. We are not seeing any, while it may have done, we don't know, but it has to be audited from a public front. We have to know what's happening because we cannot afford more deaths. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sridhar. Mix of optimism and pessimism and realism. I think in some of the ideas you proposed were also, we had some ideas also in the chat box and Shraddha will read them out, ending with rewilding. So various ideas were proposed in the chat box. Yeah, just to be fair to them, please.
I'll just try to briefly mention the issues. One is about rewilding options. Then there's a question about the tunnel, which was, I think, partly addressed to.
No, he'll address it. Yes,
Of
subsequent.
the Wayanad tunnel, yeah, and then there's a question about that. I'll just quickly read it. 7% of the land in Kerala and 14% of land in Wayanad district is not ecologically suited for habitat, but so much of land is held by plantations. So running at and then plantations are running at loss. So maybe if we can address all this. Sorry. Yeah. The most important reason it seems is heavy rains and soil loses its sheer strength. The reason for rainfall being something not related or due to some actions at the site of disaster. Possible solutions that
Yeah, thanks to all of you who wrote in, and we'll have Dr. Soman give us the last word, and you'll have to be quick, even though it's uncomfortable.
I know that. So about, the two things I wanted to say. First thing, before coming to the tunnel, I'll say, we have got a situation before us where the government can proactively act to mitigate the problems and to make a new model. And from a geological angle, what I see is that these 2-3 settlements, what you have seen, they are on very fragile, they are on sticky, quicksand business. And government should not, and the public should not allow them to perish further. The government should, if possible, find resources and settle them in a way with livelihood. If they do, that is better. Otherwise, some of your generations can further again discuss this sort of human tragedy later, not me anyhow. About the tunnel coming, the access to, I said it is a detached district. The access to the Wayanad from either from Mysore or this way, that way, is through the cart road, Tamarasheri cart road, which was a creation of Hyder Ali, that is the Tipu Sultan's father. Okay, not the Britisher. So in the last flood, what happened in 18 floods also, what happens is that when there is a rainfall incident, huge floods, etc., landslides happen, this is cut off. And for medical facilities in Wayanad, for the sale of their producers, and also access for the businessman from Calicut to this one, this is the only basically. An alternative suggestion was one time there that make a highway, overland highway through Churalmala. Through Churalmala, you can. An overland highway. No, after listening to me, please. I know that. Yeah. So then it will be cutting onto your bio resource much more. Then only an alternative suggestion was that if there is a tunnel going, the tunnel is ideal. The question is, tunneling technologies are different now. They are different. There are boring machines which can bore under the sea. This one, without much of vibration or anything. You can have a pathway, an alternative, not the much two line, the maximum 2 line, one way up and down. But the present proposal, I'm not. It will be unfair if I divulge some of the things, but still, is that a 2 byline tunnels through this one. The proposed technology is blasting. That is the NATM. That is New Austrian tunneling method. That is through blasting. Blasting will naturally, it will have vibration. And then the argument comes, when this question was posed, the argument comes that is cheaper. See, when you go to a market, you always don't purchase the cheaper things. Am I right? You look on this one. So there are technology. If you want an alternative for this one, why not require some sort of a transportation business? But then if TBM technology is adopted and a tunnel is made, it's more expensive. And alignment, I don't know, because these things are decided by officials and politicians. When we go for the EIA, we don't have any role about these things. So they decide where it should be, then they decide what is the land price, etc., etc. So if at least a minimal tunnel like in Alps or anywhere, for why not to be connected is not a bad idea. But the technology, what they will say is that NATM, that will send vibrations. Vibrations can trigger landslides. That can trigger, because now we are seeing the whole thing. And that can be, and also affect the wildlife. Even they are up, say about 800. This tunnel will be going below the peak, something like 800 meters down. In some areas it is 45, etc. in the beginning and end. And the alignment they put is from Anakampavil to Mepadi. Mepadi, it is just like 2.5 kilometers to the north of Putumala. And these two sites are 3.5 kilometers to the southwest. So this is the situation now about, the situation, there is a technology is there, certain things can be done, money is required, but then people are interested in, we don't know the people's interest.
Yeah. Sorry. See, we were looking at why the tunnel there. I mean, while there is another road through Kutiari also, we can that route also is there. Then there was someone suggested through Padinaradha, new one. This is Padinaradha would have lesser, turns, lesser ghat roads. Now that is the new suggested one, but then we are not talking about that. There is already one at Kutiari, which is again a Churam, a ghat road. But why Mepadi and why this whole problematic place? Asia's largest tourism destination is coming up at Mepadi. Asia's largest tourism destination in the same site. This is owned by, you all know, a guy called Boche, this Chemanur Jewelers guy, who is the new comrade in the game. And about 200 acres of it is already offered to the government for an airstrip. So this is the hot spot. This is where the big, really big tourism destinations are happening, this belt. If not for that landslide right now. Now, this landslide will probably change the equations a lot, but we don't know.
Yeah. So,
but tender roads on the
so I think we will now, there's plenty to spill over tea. So thanks to all panelists. Thanks to all of you for staying a little late. Yeah. And thanks very much to the student organizers, Shraddha, Rahul, Aishwarya, our entire support team, Emmanuel, young man as he was called. So thank you, everybody.